Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Let's dive straight back in.
I don't serve clients who are small businesses because small businesses shouldn't need lawyers who specialize in 50 state taxation. This is sort of an anomaly. It's interesting to me as a law professor, as somebody who loves constitutional law and loves this issue, to take this on as a former seller. But realistically, just like you shouldn't need an antitrust lawyer, you shouldn't really need a lawyer like me. And a lot of my colleagues work for, major law firms that do work for Amazon in some capacity. So it's not like they're going to be out here sort of, repeating what I'm saying, but we certainly have closed door conversations, and we've discussed this case definitely a lot. And the consensus is, the removal of physical presence isn't necessarily a bad thing for sellers. It's again, the states are going to interpret it that way, but it actually, what it does, it's got to be sort of looked at as a two-way street. In other words, physical presence is no longer this sort of barrier to taxation that big corporations like Wayfair have been hiding behind. And that's really what the court was going after. They were just sick and tired of companies that were multi-billion-dollar companies trying to claim, exemption from tax via this, it was an antiquated physical presence rule. But the court's very clear that, this was sort of, these rules seemed to be constitutional in terms of the nexus question. There's still three other questions that have to be addressed, or at least two of three, and as the case was remanded. But the court said, it seemed constitutionally sound with respect to large businesses. It didn't necessarily say that it's going to be okay with small businesses. In fact, it even invited that case to be brought, that there is still a question to be raised under a different question, not necessarily nexus, but undue burden, under due process clause, of whether or not states can continue to, can sort of place that 200 transaction rule or any other economic nexus sort of theory, even if they, sorry, actually, let me take it back. Even if you have that nexus, whatever that definition is, if it's even appropriate, there's also the question of whether or not the taxes could be so burdensome. And when we're talking about, you have this, mother in Utah who's a single mom or operating out of a kitchen table enterprise, so she can be at home with her kids, now having to file as many income and sales tax returns as Walmart, you would think that there's a pretty strong argument to be made that that's a burden. And it's an undue burden because it's all avoidable. It's not impossible for the states to fix it. The technology is there. The ability to make Amazon collect sales tax is there. The fact that the states are so dysfunctional and are unwilling to implement modern day decisions shouldn't punish our interstate commerce, our e-commerce economy. States need to adapt to the economy and to commerce, not the other way around. We can't be sort of taking a step backwards because our states are dysfunctional.
Yeah, makes total sense. So what would you say now, just to paint the picture to people, in terms of they're just moving in on selling on Amazon now, what kind of startup capital do you need just to cover your taxes, just as a startup without no projected revenue?
Well, that's just it. And that's the burden we're talking about. And that's the deterrence of entrepreneurs and the deterrence of people to continue in business, right? Because, you're looking at, and I was just meeting with the Attorney General of Hawaii with a couple sellers a few months ago. And one of the sellers actually was just getting his business off the ground and was exactly that. He's freaking out because he's like, I don't want to start a business if I have to hit a $100,000 tax compliance bill the moment I start using FBA. Yeah. We're just talking about the filing of tax returns. We're not talking about the tax itself. Nobody really opposes the tax, and that's the part that I always have to straighten out with the media, that we're not the scofflaws. We don't benefit from the tax advantage of not having to sell, not being able to collect sales tax. I mean, that's
it's the barriers to entry of being an entrepreneur. It's taking away free will for people that want to start with nothing. And, they talk about the American dream and everything's possible. But when you put that kind of burden in the way, then you're going to have no entrepreneurs. And let's face it, in the UK at least, is that most of the employment comes from smaller businesses. It's not the large corporation. Yeah, the same as the US. So if you put that kind of burden in the way, you're actually taking jobs away. And you're stifling creativity, innovation.
Yeah. And what are you taking away from Amazon in terms of the marketplace? Because a lot of private label brand owners won't launch their products. Amazon will lose all the commissions they would have made on all those products that never launch because everyone's discouraged from entering into this entrepreneurial world and selling on Amazon to begin with.
Not just that, the everything store.
So Amazon's losing too.
You can't measure that. Well, look, the everything store becomes 50% of the everything store.
Well, that's what I mean.
50% of sellers or sales, from my understanding, if the numbers are right, 50% of sales come from third party, right?
Yeah, roughly.
So if you've got that kind of burden and everyone walks away, Amazon loses 50% of the everything store overnight.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's also this notion that they're going to also weed out some sellers. It seems like when you look at the new seller fee, the management fees or the FBA fees, excuse me, and all the other stuff, that there's a cleaning house effect that they're not necessarily opposed to.
Or if they're cleaning house, they need to clean house by getting rid of seller support and getting
no, cleaning house in terms of the consolidation of the marketplace. I mean, why are they so suspension happy year in and year out? Obviously, they're willing to lose some of these people.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't care if they come back or not. Do they want to lose them all at once? No, that'll crater their revenue for any quarter. Do they want to lose them steadily over time? Yeah, I mean, certain ones, they think they're replaceable and they're willing to live without them.
Yeah, I mean, I think Amazon has, sort of implemented a really interesting strategy of, let's flood the market with products, especially when Amazon selling first started. It was probably more retail arbitrage than it was than anything else. So let's flood the market with products and get sellers competing with each other to get that price pushed down as low as possible. Now they have 120 million extremely loyal users who are completely not price sensitive as much as your typical customer because of the convenience element to the equation. So you kind of have to factor like price demand curve, and now you got to kind of factor in convenience as well, because Amazon economics are proving people will pay more for products that are Prime. And so with that type of stickiness, the need to suppress price as they did when they were a much younger company seems to go away. And so the need to sort of have cutthroat competition in the warehouses seems to be less and less. And so I think what they're going to do is they're going to say eventually all the states will collect sales tax. Eventually this will get sorted out. It may be years unless we take the action we take, but they're going to enjoy delaying this process because Amazon has one other interest in here, and that's selling products tax-free. I mean, there is no question when you look at the products, especially the products that are tax-free, right? Like if you want to buy a MacBook on Amazon, you're not going to get it from 1P, you're going to buy it from 3P, and you're going to find one that sells it tax-free.
Yeah.
So, they're benefiting from that. In fact, Wayfair, to me, the funny thing about Wayfair is, you have the President Trump sending in the Solicitor General to argue in support of the states win. Now you've got Newegg, Overstock, Wayfair, and other online electronic sellers as well, probably B&H, now collecting sales tax on all their 1P sales because that's predominantly what they do. And so where do people go who are tax sensitive, right? Where do the tax sensitive shoppers and the tax motivated shoppers go? Well, now they have less choice, but one choice they do have is Amazon. So, I think Wayfair was a big win for Amazon. And I think, Bezos, with respect to Trump trying to kind of put a thorn in Bezos by through the Wayfair case, I think Bezos is laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's to their advantage to stagger the process, right? As long as they don't wind up on the hook at the end.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what they did. They're just repeating.
It's working like a charm, I have to admit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing they did with 1P sales, or just repeating it for 3P, right? And then let's say the states start going after the individual sellers and not imposing these so-called, marketplace collection laws that they don't even need, but they do it anyway to give. That's how Amazon gets its clean slate. When the slates pass the marketplace collection laws, it creates ambiguity as to the prior law. Amazon gets its slate clean, but which is why that's their preferred method. But let's say the states continue to go after the individual sellers. Well, let's say they're successful in pushing out all of the domestic sellers, and only the ones that can really survive. It's like you said before, Dan. You got the Chinese sellers aren't going to give a crap about selling on Amazon and being subject to sales tax. They're just going to disappear and reappear. By the time a sales tax assessment goes through, they'll have their inventory out, their LLC will be, or whatever their Chinese equivalent of operating entity will be gone. The states can't enforce their taxes against the seller in China. It's going to be impossible. I'm not sure how well they could enforce one in the UK, especially one.
Well, I mean, with the VAT, they literally do anyone who's evading tax gets away do whatever they want. Because we had Richard on the show recently, and we covered it, and it was basically it's open season, and until 2021 when Batmos, then no one can do anything. They can keep faking with the numbers. They'll get their account suspended, replace it with another one, set up a new limited company, and off to the races. They can go again. It's just open season. There is just no limitation.
Australia patched it. Australia with like an instant just patched it. They're like, no, this isn't going to happen, and they literally patched it. I mean, it seemed like it was almost overnight. From when Amazon announced that it was going to be officially in Australia, they officially patched the law so that every Amazon transaction will be taxed in the country.
Yeah.
That's the way every state country should be thinking. I don't know
exactly.
why.
And on the VAT thing in Germany, they're much more militant about it. And I think when people have been suspended, they're literally gone. When you hit a threshold, you're gone. You know, you have to abide by the rules. So that's quite interesting how that works. But no, it's open season in the UK for a little while. And I'm sure it's going to be the same from, you know, coming from, say, China or any overseas company, I imagine, you know, going into the US. If they don't have the resources to follow it up, then it's going to be very difficult to enforce it.
Right. Well, if Amazon doesn't have the resources to track down all the related accounts to blocked Chinese sellers, and people are selling with dozens of accounts, obviously not connected to each other, if Amazon doesn't have those resources, how would the states, right?
I mean, they had 800 people sign up for amnesty, roughly. I mean, it's like they're going after over 1 million sellers, 2 million, and you know, obviously most
under
of them,
1,000, wasn't it? How many people?
It was like 800 and something. I think the final number,
12 or something.
Not even. I think the final number ended up being like that was like an overestimate.
Oh, okay.
Ended up being like in the 800 to 900 range, I think. But it's ridiculous. And I'm sorry for people who did that. I can't say you made a good or a bad decision, but I just I'm sure.
Sorry, to rephrase that, you're talking about the amnesty recently.
Last year.
Yeah, almost a year ago.
So for the listeners on the show, do you want to explain what that was in case they missed it?
Yeah, so basically you had about 20 states get together, and instead of focusing on making Amazon the retailer tax, they decided they're going to falsely accuse every seller on Amazon and then forgive you for it if you come forward and register to collect by a certain date, basically right before it was supposed to be before the Christmas selling season, but they got so overwhelmed by 800 people that they couldn't even get it going by then. But that was the idea, is that if you had signed up for the program, that you would potentially waive your back tax liability with respect to sales tax, not necessarily income tax. And some states like Massachusetts didn't even waive your sales tax at all, just sort of some interest relief and penalty relief. But that was the idea. So you could register with 20 states. And so that was kind of the big push with the tax service providers, was to kind of get you into amnesty, to take advantage of this one-time gift that states rarely ever give. But I mean, again, it's like they don't usually give quite a generous relief like that. But again, you're also being falsely accused of violating a law that you didn't violate. You also have states like Florida, Georgia, who are involved, where they know they've signed deals with Amazon that prevent them from collecting from the marketplace. And, basically they're just using this as a sort of a workaround because they feel like they're bound to that agreement. I would say that agreement is probably illegal, because you're basically allowing unequal enforcement of the tax law, which is what created the unfair tilted playing field in Amazon's favor in the first place. And that's probably an illegal benefit. That's not like giving somebody a property tax abatement on a warehouse. But nonetheless, they continue, it's political. They want to continue to appease Amazon, get the HQ, get whatever warehouses and jobs. So they continue to live by that agreement and then go after the sellers. So they figured this is at least a good way not to punish the sellers for the back taxes, because I think they probably question whether or not there is a liability, but at least to get them to register going forward. Other states are just being highly aggressive anyway, and this was a first stab at that. Wisconsin, for example, I know for a fact Wisconsin's going after Walmart. Walmart has a marketplace that operates just like Amazon's marketplace, but similar concept. Walmart is being accused by Wisconsin as being the retailer, as to your first question, right? So how can Walmart marketplace be considered a retailer by Wisconsin, but with respect to Amazon, it's amnesty. It's on you. Jefferson County Parish, Louisiana just won a case against Walmart. Same thing. Walmart's a retailer, not Amazon, Walmart. So it's
why doesn't Walmart have better lobbyists? Maybe that's a better question.
Because Walmart's not building distribution centers and jobs.
I know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that's
rhetorical question.
Yeah. Walmart. I used to do some lobbying for Walmart. It's right. Pretty good. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Is there anything you want to add on a roundup here? Just some key things that people should know before we wrap the show.
I mean, the only thing I had to add is the Wayfair case isn't the case about Amazon FBA, and Paul's going to talk about that more than I ever would. But since we're talking about a recent Supreme Court decision, that's the first thing people have to understand, is that it's not over based on what happened in the Wayfair case. So
that's good to know. Paul?
Yeah, so to Chris's point, absolutely. I mean, the one point I always remind people is that, remember, states thought you had Nexus as an FBA seller before Wayfair. Even if Wayfair had won, the states would still argue your Nexus was already established, and that therefore it really wouldn't have benefited most FBA sellers. It would have maybe protected the eBay sellers who don't use an FBA system, but who are purely eBay. But for most of you, it still applied. So what do you do? What's the action item? How do we stop this? Well, for anyone facing a tax liability right now from California or potential tax liability, I mean, you're looking at a very expensive process. One that, the first thing I tell my clients, the clients who get letters from California, like, do I reply to this questionnaire? How do I reply? What do I do? What's the best course of action? The first thing I tell them is, people always say, well, the lawyers always tell you not to do what the accountants say because they want you to, get into litigation and, just bleed you dry through this expensive litigation. The first thing I tell my clients is you can't afford it. This is the type of litigation that, we used to do at the big companies that could cost, hundreds of thousands, $500,000, $1 million plus. I mean, these are very expensive court cases that need to be brought. And every seller would have to bring that same case. And that's pointless and a waste of money and a waste of resource. And it really doesn't make sense, which is kind of what inspired that whole online merchants guild that we set up, because we want to crowdfund basically that defense so that we all get the benefit of it. Because if we win, we all win. I mean, it's not like a theoretical win. It's not a philosophical win. Our goal is to get immediate relief. We call it declaratory judgment. Basically, the state's basically being told by a court, you can't do this anymore. Stop going after them for back taxes. Stop going after them going forward. Make it easier. Figure it out. Make Amazon collect, which is a big difference in terms of what we can argue versus Wayfair, because we have that as a counterpoint to say, one of the reasons why this burden is so unnecessary is sort of ridiculous is because there is this really unnecessary. It's really an unnecessary burden. This is a really obvious alternative, one that Wayfair didn't have. So we have a really strong case. Our lawyers are at work on building it up. I'm involved all the time. We're trying to get it going. People are, contributing, and we certainly could use more contributions to make sure that we can sustain the case that we intend to bring.
Cool. So how can people reach you for the contributions? Reach out to get in contact with you. onlinemerchantsguild.org, onlinemerchantsguild.org. And we have, on our website, you click join now and you can join. We just published a comprehensive FAQ that kind of goes through who we are and what we're intending to do and why you should join. Our finances are discussed. We haven't really spent a dime of contributed money on anything. Our run rate's really, really, really low because we don't have any employees. And every dollar that's getting contributed right now is basically allocated to paying lawyers to get this defense up and running. So it's a really is just kind of operating as a crowdsourced legal fund initially, and then we hope to sort of expand it into offering, again, advocacy and voice, right? Mark Zuckerberg on Capitol Hill, being asked by Orrin Hatch, how do you make money if you don't charge your product for your service? You sell ad senator, right? These are the people who are going to be determining the future of e-commerce law policy. We need to combat that. We need to have a voice for e-commerce so that, lobbyists don't get to control what, clueless Congress people have no idea about. And so they kind of rely on the lobbyists for education, which is dangerous. So sounds good. Chris, how can people reach you?
So ecommercechris.com.
Cool.
And we've got the ecommercechris.com/membership.
Cool. Sounds good. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us
Thanks
today.
a lot.
If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you again in the next few days. Take care.